So good afternoon. I am Regina Crandall, the Small Business, excuse me, and Employment Resources Librarian with St. Louis County Library. Today, I'm going to review the primary sources of nonprofit funding and how a nonprofit can maximize funding potential using multiple methods. Then I will focus on how to find donors and grant makers using library resources. And then lastly, I'll show you where you can find some free resources to learn about writing grant proposals. Okay. So before we dive into comparing grants and donations, let's explore how nonprofits typically receive funding. So nonprofit funding may be referenced by several names, including revenue, income, and donations, to name a few. I will use these terms interchangeably throughout the presentation. So to accomplish their organizational goals and objectives, nonprofits generally use several different streams of revenue to fulfill their mission. Having diverse funding portfolio is important to a nonprofit's funding strategy because it helps ensure financial sustainability. So let's review some common funding sources in the nonprofit sector. So we have grants, which are received through an application process. Fees for services. These can include maybe adoption fees at an animal shelter or tuition at a private school, rent of space at a church or recreation center, or entrance fees at a cause race, like Race for the Cure is an example. Product sales are also a great way for revenue. Think Girl Scout cookies or Cub Scout popcorn, or all of that cool stuff you see in a museum gift shop. Those are examples of product sales. And then, of course, there's donations, and that includes both in-kind and cash. In-kind donations are donations other than cash, like household goods you would, give to Goodwill, toys to Toys for Tots, or building supplies for Habitat for Humanity. And cash donations can include, it is money, but it can include anything from the pennies you drop into the Salvation Army's red kettle at Christmas to bequests, which are gifts that are made as part of a will or trust. Dues and memberships are also another source for nonprofits. So dues might be something like the Chamber of Commerce or homeowners associations or clubs. And memberships might include cultural institutions to like the zoo and the botanic gardens and museums. And corporate sponsorships are a large funding source for nonprofits. Public facilities, universities, and hospitals rely on naming rights to offset construction and operational costs. And the use of celebrity endorsement to heighten awareness of a cause is another type of corporate sponsorship. And events are a fabulous funding source for nonprofits. They can be anything from a grand event like the Met Gala, benefit concerts or telethons, to local level events like school sports and arts performance admissions. So funding opportunities or fundraising initiatives like these generally come from three sources: individuals, corporations, and government agencies. But what is the motivation for these sources to donate? An individual donor may give because of personal beliefs and values. A love for animals may move someone to donate to the SPCA or a local animal shelter. A corporation may give back to the community where their customers and employees live and work through an organization whose mission aligns with theirs, like giving to a local nonprofit to alleviate food insecurity or promote digital literacy, for example. A government agency, we think city or county, but even a water or school district, for example, may be interested in funding regional programs like supporting affordable housing, workforce development, or after-school projects to improve their communities. So this chart shows the 4 top streams of revenue for nonprofits and clearly demonstrates the need to diversify sources in order to maximize income. So this information is coming from the Giving USA 2023, the annual report on philanthropy for the year 2022. In the year 2022, giving by individuals totaled an estimated $319 billion. Giving by foundations was an estimated $105 billion. Givings by bequests was an estimated $45.5 billion. And giving by corporations was the smallest at nearly $30 billion. And that includes cash and in-kind contributions, as well as grants and gifts made by corporate foundations. So why diversify revenue streams? These statistics I just shared underscore how diversifying your revenue streams results in more revenue, which in turn accelerates your organization's mission. Multiple streams create security and stability for your organization. Having your eggs in more than one basket, so to speak, can help your nonprofit stay flexible, adaptable, and resilient in times of risk and uncertainty. Let's take COVID, for example. Organizations that relied heavily on events to raise funds took a huge hit when the pandemic started, while those who had other sources of revenue were able to simply shift focus to something else. Another great benefit to diversifying your revenue streams is that doing so helps expand your network. The more partners you find in donors, members, corporations, and government bodies, the stronger your community becomes. You never know which of these partnerships will lead to the next big opportunity to grow even further, to increase your revenue, and to advance your mission. So nonprofit organizations require different funding sources in order to run everything from their day-to-day operations to supporting their long-term vision. So as I quickly outlined, there are a variety of ways for nonprofits to generate revenue. The best approach depends on the organization's goals, mission, and resources available. But with careful planning and execution, any nonprofit can maximize its revenue streams and achieve its goals. No two nonprofits are alike, so the fundraising strategy for your nonprofit will differ as well. So selecting the funding strategy that best fits the vision for your organization is contingent upon a few factors. Organizational capacity is a key factor to consider, as some fundraising efforts require much effort. So for example, grants require a substantial amount of time and talent. You have to find good fit funders and then read, complete, and submit the application along with required documentation. And even after all that work, there is still a chance that your proposal will be rejected. Events are another fundraising effort that requires substantial resources of time, talent, and money upfront to execute. So another factor to consider is need. The bigger the need, the more personnel, resources, and funding your organization will require. You will want to consider how many people and funding your organization, you want to consider how many people your organization serves annually and how much per person it costs to serve them. The bigger the need, the more money required to operate the organization and the more money required to fulfill its vision. And lastly, but certainly a priority, is sustainability. It is important to have a plan in place to continue your nonprofit services even after the initial funding opportunities have run out. For example, if you received a grant to start an after-school program for low-income kids, do you have plans in place to keep that program running after the initial grant money has been used in full? Have you developed a budget projection for the next 3 to 5 years? You may be financially solvent now, but what about the next few years? Part of running a successful nonprofit requires thinking ahead and planning for changing needs. Hiring new staff, expanding programs, and developing new initiatives all incur costs, and you don't want to find yourself in a position where you don't have enough funding. Where do you see your nonprofit in 5, 10, even 15 years? Having a long-term vision for your organization can help you anticipate and plan for necessary costs in the future. For example, if your nonprofit plans to outgrow its current facilities, do you have a long-term strategy for raising capital for a new building or renting a larger space? So taking into your organizational capacity, needs, and sustainability plans into account should help you determine which funding strategies will be best for your nonprofit to pursue. So we're going to look a little deeper at two of these funding options, donors and grants. Okay, so at the base of it, both grants and donations are gifts, money given to an organization that does not have to be repaid. Ultimately, the drive behind both grants and donations is to support the mission and sustainability of a nonprofit organization. However, how the funds are allocated is the key difference. So a donor generally gifts your organization with a donation that does not have to be paid back or applied for. Donors are primarily individuals with a vested interest in your nonprofit's mission, but it can also be an entity, a company, or a foundation. The funding received from a donor is primarily unrestricted and can be used for whatever purposes the officers or trustees choose, unless the donation is a donor-directed gift and the donor specifies to whom the gift should be given or how the funds should be used. On the other hand, grants are generally restricted funds allocated for a specific initiative or program or project given to an organization that is referred to as the grantee. Unlike a loan or line of credit, grants typically do not have to be repaid. Funders, often referred to as grantors or grant makers, often include public and private organizations, philanthropic and community foundations, government agencies, and sometimes individuals. So the funder of a grant will set the terms, conditions, and purpose of the fund. The grant award must be used for that predetermined project only. So to be awarded a grant, there's typically a comprehensive application process, generally referred to as a request for proposal or an RFP, where you are required to write and submit a proposal describing the project you're seeking funding for. So for example, a state health agency, say the Missouri Department of Public Health, may request applications from community-based organizations and health clinics, etc., to apply for funding so that they can educate their communities about receiving the vaccine. Or a foundation like a local one like Enterprise Holding Foundation may request applications from groups working disaster and recovery efforts around the world, or organizations serving or based in Missouri, since those efforts are the focus of that foundation's mission. So if anyone here has ever applied for a grant, you're very well aware that grant makers receive more applications than they have funds available for. So winning a grant can be a very competitive process. It's possible to create an incredible proposal and still, again, not receive any funding. So in the event a nonprofit is awarded grant funds, a contract is executed and signed by both parties. Periodic and final reports are generally required to highlight the success of the proposed project and its impact on the community. So the grantee must have the capacity, the time, and talent to monitor the funds and report the results. So through donations and bequests, individual donors typically account for more than 3/4, 75% of charitable giving every year. Nonprofit organizations rely on individual donors for consistent support. One of the first steps in approaching potential donors is to find out detailed information about them through prospect research. Researching individual philanthropists is somewhat difficult because, unlike foundations, they're not required to publicly disclose their financial and philanthropic activities. But we can learn about potential donors, their giving potential, and interests through free databases at the library. So Reference Solution, one such database, is an online directory containing millions of listings of businesses, residents, and consumer data across the United States. For purposes of this conversation, we will use this database to build a list of potential donors. We're going to go into it here. I'm going to go back quickly and show you how we got to this. In case no one is familiar with our website, we're going to go. We start at slcl.org. Everything we're talking about today, we go to Research and Learn. Okay. Since most of what we're talking about today are small business databases, we have a little shortcut here so you can go to small business. And then you can come down and see a few of these. So we're going into Reference Solutions. Okay, so what you are looking at here is a database that has access to millions of records, 95 million businesses, 10 million homeowners, 152 million residents. Does everyone remember the white and yellow pages? You do not have to Google this information and pay for it. This database literally replaces that information, and this is where you can search for individuals and businesses. So today we're going to go here into U.S. consumers and lifestyles. And what we are trying to do is get a list of potential donors. So we are looking for that information. We are going directly into advanced search. You can do it from here or additional filters. Okay. So what we are looking for in this example are potential donors in a geographic area. Okay. So I'm going to choose, let's see, a zip code. Since Ladue is right here, let's pick 163124. Okay. We are coming down here to lifestyles. These are a way we can search people, and what we want here are charitable donors. Okay. So we've chosen our geographic location, and we're looking for charitable donors. We're viewing results. So as you can see, there are 1,896 people that live in this zip code that have historically been donors to charity. Okay. So from this file, we have literally created a list that you can use. You can download this file. You can print this file. You can save this file. Maybe this is too many people. Okay. And you want to say, I want not only donors, but I want people that have a general interest in pets, because maybe you have an animal-based nonprofit. Okay, so you can you can view those results. I don't know how that's even possible. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay. I just want charitable donor, not wildlife. Gonna say that should go down. Okay, so basically what we see here are people that have a general interest in pets and are historical donors in this zip code. Okay. So you can play with this data till it meets your needs. What's really cool about this also, so not only do you have this list of people, it generates a heat map. So you can see where these people are physically located. Okay. This is a great tool if you are going to use door-to-door marketing, for example. Okay. So let's go back to our initial results. We're just clicking that back key here. So we can go into any individual to get insight on their consumer behavior. I'll try to get you in just a second, Susan. Okay. You will notice that Mr. King here, when you come down here, I was going to say, not helping myself here. It seems to have gone out of my, I'm going to come back here. Take off pets. My charitable donor function just kind of disappeared. We're going to go into Mr. Ferguson here. So when you scroll down, you see his contact information. You see some violating financial information. But you notice here, he is a charitable donor. You can also see other lifestyle and consumer choices if that helps you expand or narrow your search. Marketing dollars are precious. So honing in on these details will save you money in the long run. So note here at the top also, telephone numbers displayed may not be or may be on the do not call list and should not be used for solicitation. You are responsible for compliance with all federal, state, and local laws. So what they're saying, although we are providing a phone number, does not mean you should use it. Okay. Good question, Susan. So all of this data, and I can follow up with this. These are huge databases that culminate, that prospect data from government sources. And unfortunately, absolutely everything we do in this society is collected, and that information is sold to organizations like this, where that information is accumulated. So if you want, I can get you some literally, where does this information come from, if that helps you. Okay. We are also going to try, we're going to cut out of here. So that is reference solutions. Okay. When we come here, we also have emergent intellect, which likewise features a deep collection of U.S. and international business data and U.S. consumer and residential data. So from here, you can likewise generate potential donors. You access it just like reference solutions. This is what its homepage looks like. So the two look different, and the whichever one you can use both. Either, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's just how the database feels. So once again, we are going directly into consumer data because we are trying to get that information. I'm going to show you, we're just going to take something similar. Let's choose St. Louis. St. Louis. Okay, we check St. Louis. What's different here in this database is you have to add 2 criteria with every step of the way. Okay, so I say we look at, oh, can I advise you? There are multiple St. Louis's. Pick your state, or you're going to see some from Michigan, Minnesota, I think. So you want that. Let's try that again, just to make sure St. Louis is still chosen. Okay. And I say we look for, in this instance, we want people that not only are donors, but let's say instead of pets, like we used in the last example, we use that they're interested in arts. And that we really only want to target those that earn over $125,000 a year. So you've got a large initiative. Whatever your reason for choosing these criteria is entirely yours. So under lifestyle is where we're going to find arts. So we want interest in the arts. We add to our criteria. Okay, and then we're going to come under consumer detail to find donator to charity. Estimated income, $125,000 or more, and we're adding all of those criteria to our search. So you come down here, okay, I don't know how many times I chose St. Louis. We can see we chose St. Louis, Missouri, someone interested in the arts, donator to charity that makes over $125,000 a year. Search, okay. Notice we have 974 people that fit this criteria, okay. So you can access that same level of detail per donor by clicking on them here. But here you can also search further by gender. Okay, so if you wanted to just target females, you can go up here, okay, and just grab them. Okay, and that reduces your list. If you wanted to target a certain age group for whatever reason, you're going for, you're just trying to get retirees, for example, you can go to them. And so you're going off that same information. It is just sorting it in whatever means is most convenient for you. Since we chose a city this time as opposed to a zip code, you could do it by zip code, so you can focus your marketing dollars in a certain zip code. Okay, so we're going to come back here. And once again, we can go into somebody. We have their contact information and other demographic data. Demographic data is from the census information a lot of times. And you can see other things they're interested in. In this case, we wanted to do interest in arts, okay? And we wanted to see that they were a donator to charities, okay? But most importantly here, you have contact information. So these are a few of the databases that where you can find lists of individual charitable donors. But how do you find lists of businesses or foundations, private foundations, or grant-making public charities are entities that support charitable activities as well by making donations and grants to unrelated organizations and other institutions for myriad charitable, scientific, educational, cultural purposes. So we are going to focus on the grant aspect of foundation giving. Okay. So if you don't know already, and I think I've said it before, grant prospecting is very time consuming. Now, an effective grant database will help you focus your efforts and find funders whose missions align with yours faster. So this is a tool. So such a database would ideally have a comprehensive listing from diverse sources, accurate and up-to-date information, an intuitive interface that isn't frustrating to navigate or maybe even expensive, detailed funder profiles, and search and filtering tools to help you narrow your results. So these key characteristics ensure that you can effectively and efficiently find and apply for relevant grant opportunities. Well, with being confident that you have accurate and up-to-date information. So Foundation Directory Online is one such database, and it specializes in public and private foundation funding across the United States. And it is available for free in all St. Louis County Library branches. It is also available at the Kirkwood branch, and it is available at St. Louis Public Library, but only in the Central branch downtown. All three systems, this is the one database that we all have that cannot be accessed outside of the library. It cannot be accessed remotely. So if you want this information, you have to go to a branch. But because it can't be accessed remotely, that means you don't require a library card to use it. So anybody can go to one of those branches and use it without a library card. So this is the database we will be discussing at length. What are its strengths? It has detailed search and filtering capabilities on grant makers and their funding history. It has comprehensive information on grant and application guidelines for grant writers. We get a lot of people who do a lot of grant research here. It has a funding trend analysis that illustrate as well as speak to funding trends and patterns. And it provides unique information on foundations that is not information that is not found on the web. You cannot get this information by Googling. That is, the libraries spend a lot of money on this database so that you don't have to. But let's be honest, it has some weaknesses. It does not offer search capabilities for RFPs, requests for proposals, beyond foundations. So as a foundations grants database, it's very useful. But if you're looking for local, state, or federal grants, you'll want to search elsewhere. Okay. So we are going to go to our database here. Research and learn again. Small business. And you're coming down. Foundation directory online. Okay. So this is what, excuse me while I move things. I apologize. This is the home page of Foundation Directory Online. So we're going to go through another example here. Now you can enter your search criteria here, like it says. Here's an example, a ballet school in New York. Okay, and I'm going to show you kind of both ways to search for this. But minimally, your criteria should include what will the funds be used for, where will the funds be used, and who will they benefit. So let's say we want a food pantry in St. Louis for low-income people. I want to show you, this is what we need to notice. This is how the system interpreted what I just wrote. Okay, so it's important to notice because sometimes an element is missing and sometimes an element is just plain wrong. I don't know how they got arts and culture from that. So we're going to get rid of that here. But what I'm showing you is if you had gone into advanced search right away, you would have come up with this screen. So you can come into any of these areas and there's drop downs. Okay. There's drop downs here. Geographic focus. Food banks is okay, but geographic focus. I need you to be aware St. Louis is really weird. So you almost have to wait for the drop downs to see what it's going to come up with. You know, do you do ST period, spell out Saint, experiment with St. Louis. Okay, population served likewise has a drop down. And I did put low income, but when I come down here, so you can notice we have age groups. So you can make it very specific, ethnic and racial, family relationships, gender and sexual identity, health. You know, if you're doing a program toward people and it's a health related one, religious groups, social and economic status. I want to put economically disadvantaged people. I could have gone in there and just hit low income, but I do want that to include extremely poor people, homeless people, working poor. Okay. So I'm going to, you know, instead of doing this, I'm going to do that. Immigrants and migrants, you can see the definitions here. Okay. Work status, interesting. I just think that probably separates students from others. So basically we have our food banks in St. Louis for the economically disadvantaged people. So we'll change our search, excuse me. We come up here, food banks, St. Louis, economically disadvantaged people. Fantastic. This is exactly where we want to be. So you will notice when you scroll down here, with those criteria, there are 206 organizations that gave grants based on that criteria in the past. Okay. Those 206 grant makers gave 669 grants to 68 different recipients. Okay. So you can delve into any of this information to start your research. So you can see here, when you go into here, this will be details on your 206 grant makers. There's going to be details on your 669 grants, your recipients. And interestingly, down here, we have the 990 forms for the organization. So you have the ability to research their financials. We will address that later too. Okay, so let's say, let's take a local organization. We're going to look at the Fox Family Foundation. So by clicking on any of these links, you get more details. You come down here, you can see that the Fox Family Foundation funded 995 grants to 304 organizations for over $23 million in the last 5 years. Okay. You can also see their grant activity. You can see what they funded by subject, where they funded, and the size of those grants. These graphics help you visualize what is stated below, and you can click on the view bar for each to get more details. So these are not just catchy images. They're providing you critical insight into the funder's mission about where and what is funded. If your missions do not align, please, this is not a relationship to pursue. So let's go into this, for example. You can see exactly what they funded, the amount by subject and how many, and it goes down here, okay? Also note that you can change the period that you are looking by doing this chart options at the top. So this might be relevant if you are looking for grants given in a certain time frame. Let's see. So you can see how that data changes as you change your scope. Okay. You can see here that the Fox Foundation has not given any grant money toward science, public safety, really, agriculture and fishing for the past 5 years or a few years. Again, if your mission does not align with this organization, or your organization falls into one of these categories, then your missions don't align, and this is not a fit, and you should focus elsewhere. Okay, we're going back. So please note, this is where grant makers have historically deployed money. Just because they've never given money in Idaho, for example, does not mean that they will not. But when you are weeding through potential funders and have limited resources to find and write grant proposals, then maybe you should consider passing on this grantor. And once again, you can go here and you can see exactly how many and who and where. It's a fascinating tool. Fascinating tool. Okay, and let's look at the size of the grants. This helps you determine if the funder has historically given grants in the amounts you are seeking. Again, if you're looking for something more than what this grantor has historically given, you should probably keep looking for a better fit. I'm sure you could use a $5,000 grant, but if you need $2 million to fund a capital project, you need to find a funder that has the interest and capacity to entertain your request. Okay, so we're scrolling down. This once again shows the individual grants. where those funds were used, the year they were awarded, and the amount. And to see any details for these specific grants, you just drill down. And in drilling down, you can also see, this is kind of cool, the subject lines and the population groups that this grantee used in their grant proposals. So these details can give you some additional terms that you might not have considered. But this is only relevant if they, or important if this is relevant to your situation. You should not be changing your mission and need just to get money. So the information, the more information that the foundation supplies, the more information you will get in this database. So we continue to scroll down. These funding interests in geographic locations and population groups, this is this information right here. So these graphs help you visualize this information, okay? We go into about, they literally explain what they will fund right here. So once again, if you do not fit into this, they're telling you don't bother, okay? Oftentimes there are other funders to consider, and this is great. Because they would take your criteria, so the same subject matter, geographic areas served, and grant amounts. And if there were other funders that fit into that, they would be listed here. We have the application and RFP details, and this is nice. A lot of them don't provide this information, but doing so saves you a lot of time. This tells you exactly what they do, when they do it, and what they expect. Okay, so if I wanted to know anything further, I might want to go to their website and see. Okay, so financial statements. Generally, there's a 990 button right here. You saw how you could also access that on the first page. But by looking at this organization's annual reports, you can determine the financial strength of that organization. I mean, for example, you don't want to get excited about getting awarded a $100,000 grant only to find out later that that entity doesn't have the capacity to give you those funds. It also shows you who's who in this organization. So maybe you have a connection to someone within the organization that you can pursue maybe outside of application criteria. Just say, you know, can you give me an in? Can you give me some insight? Can you get my foot in the door? Leverage your network. Communications. This highlights when an organization or someone within the organization has been mentioned in the media. It's another great way to get some intel on that organization. And lastly, and certainly important, is contact information for that organization. Okay. So I hope I'm not scrolling too fast. Don't want to make anyone nauseous. Or maybe that's just me. So when you go back, I want to show you really quickly that you have the ability to see, because you can't do this remotely, you have to go to the library. Oftentimes, this is a lot of information, especially to take notes. It's just not probable. You can save this information. So you have the ability. I would recommend bringing a flash drive so you have that, but you can also email this information directly to yourself, and whoever sits down with you in the library can show you how to do it. Okay. Whew. That's a lot of information. So now that you've researched grant makers and found maybe some applicable grants worth applying for, where can you learn about how to write grant proposals? I mean, that's clearly important. So the library has several tools to help you learn about grant writing. We do not help people write grants. We direct you to resources where you can learn how to write grants. So Gale Courses offers a wide range of highly interactive instructor-led courses that you take entirely online. So these courses are free to library card holders. Let's accept that. They run for 6 weeks and new sessions begin every month. Be aware, however, that the county library will not offer Gale courses after June 11th, but this database is available at St. Louis Public Library in the city and St. Charles County Library. Okay, we come here. We have LinkedIn Learning and Udemy. Both of these websites offer video courses and tutorials of various lengths and levels of experience if flexibility and self-paced learning is your preference. So this is LinkedIn Learning here. If you try to access LinkedIn Learning courses through LinkedIn, you would have to pay. If you access LinkedIn Learning through the library, they are free. So I put in here grant proposal writing, and you can see the various courses here. This one's certificate eligible, writing a proposal, 2 hours and 15 minutes. I must have started that one. Overview of proposal writing, proposals and contracts, creating a standard proposal. So you can see what exactly you're looking for, how long you have, okay? I'm going to switch over to Udemy here. I did the same thing. I just put grant writing in as this topic. But I would, notice how we're going to come down here to maybe basic grant proposal writing for nonprofits. Oh, heavens. It obviously kicks you out after a certain amount of time. I apologize. It was having issues earlier. We'll see. Both of these sites cover an incredible, just thousands and thousands of topics. Okay, so this is a good example. You can see it's an on-demand video. This is 3 hours. It's got downloadable resources. It's accessible on your phone. It has assignments so you can test yourself. And very importantly, it has a certificate of completion. It may be important if you use this information to further your own career. You can show that you have that experience, that educational criteria. You also look a little further. It shows you, reviews, which is great. You can break down the lecture into tiny pieces, digestible parts, and you have the bio of the teacher. So other than just YouTubing something, you can see the legitimacy of this resource. Okay, so we're coming back here. So of course, the library has books for those that process better by reading. So the collection of books is impressive, especially since we've merged catalogs with the St. Louis Public Library. So it basically gives you access to double the amount of the material. And it has been my experience that these materials are often continuously checked out. Okay. People will say they'll just come back on another day and pick up what's on the shelf. But I'm strongly encouraging you to put a hold on an item that appeals to you because they are rarely on the shelves. This is a very popular topic. Okay, and it just goes on. And all I did was put grant writing in the search bar. And then, of course, the library has grant writing programs, which can be found on our events page. One such program that is coming up, but it's not yet posted, is a 2-part workshop on getting grant ready, and grant writing on October 3rd as part of our annual Small Business and Nonprofit Conference. Although that time has yet to be determined, that workshop will be held at the brand new Clark Family Branch on South Lindbergh and Clayton Road. So please look for more grant-related programming as we settle into our new building. Okay, so outside the library, I recommend these resources for additional training and information. So Candid Learning. Oh, there we go. In addition to Foundation Directory Online and GuideStar, they are in the family with Candid. So Candid provides training, you can see on-demand and live webinars. I highly encourage you. You can see sample documents, knowledge base, nonprofit startup resources. You can funnel it by topic. Okay. A lot of these are also available in Spanish, which is really nice. Okay. Just another resource. So they have several resources to help you on your journey. We also have SCORE. For those of you who are unfamiliar with SCORE, SCORE is a nonprofit organization that provides free consultation services and advice to entrepreneurs. So you can get paired with a mentor who is a volunteer, and they provide their resource expertise to small business owners through chapters across the United States, including in St. Louis. So I say that because among the services they provide are live and recorded webinars on a range of business topics, but I've narrowed this search to grant writing so you can see the sampling, of course, is relevant to this conversation. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. You can see it's going to be live, so you can register, and some of them are recorded, so you can review later. Okay. I'm coming back to one of the most common requests we get is for recommendations of grant writers or researchers. This is not something we can provide, but I want to make you aware that there is a Grant Professionals Association in the St. Louis region. Maybe it's possible that you could get, you can tap into their membership list by contacting them. I'm not sure. They also have a range of resources, not only about grants and grant writing, but about nonprofits in general from their chapter resources tab. Okay. So if you would like one-on-one assistance to go over library resources, especially those we just quickly covered during this presentation or any of our library resources, I suggest booking a librarian. You come into this, you basically tell us when and where to meet you, but what you would like to specifically talk about. We will sit down with you for an hour and go over the resources that pertain to your particular research needs. Okay. Likewise, here is the contact information to quick reference for the reference department. We're available by email, phone, and text. Okay. Whew. Okay. Let me get to the chat to see. Sandra, everything I talked about is accessible outside the library with a library card, except for Foundation Directory Online. Foundation Directory Online is accessible at every St. Louis County library, Central Library downtown, and Kirkwood Library. Okay. Yes, Adrian, hopefully there's going to be a recording later. We'll see how that tech worked out, and that's probably not the fault of the technology, but me. So yes, there should be a recording. Is there a category for historic preservation? I would have to go in and look. Are you talking, Jan? I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about, I don't know what database you're referring to. Maybe you can let me know. And Susan wanted to know. Susan, maybe I'll email you later about data source. And you were talking about the data related to reference solutions and emergent intellect, I believe. Okay. And Maya. Maya, I recommend you want the process to get funding and what criteria. You would have to do that research. Hopefully, since you asked that question nearly an hour ago, I apologize. This gave you steps where you could go through. I would recommend going into Udemy and things like that, because that will show you the process of getting funding. So that then you can do your research and make that a valuable thing. Does it cover bringing an artist from a foreign country for once again, you have to research the type of grants available, but I would assume someone out there, arts are heavily covered in grants. It's just a matter of researching those. Let me come down. Okay, Susan, I will try to. But the information that about foundations comes directly from their 990 forms from the IRS. Okay, so that is just a culmination of data. A lot of the census data comes from the Census Bureau. Does anybody else have any questions? Here's my contact information. I would love hearing from any of you if you want to. I literally just raced through a whole bunch of things. I feel like I was jabbering, but if you need clarification on anything, let's get together. Okay, this is what I look like. You did not miss anything throughout this conversation. So if I can help anyone, otherwise, that is all I have for you today. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. I'll stay on for another minute. Does anyone have any questions? Fantastic. Thank you all. I appreciate it.